When you hear the word remaster, when you hear that a game is getting a remake, do you have any idea what that actually means? No? Me neither. I have no idea. And I think that's something we've kind of have to contend with recently because of, you guessed it, Sony. The new thing is that Horizon Zero Dawn's getting a remaster. I don't know why either. I have no idea. But apparently it's to make it look a lot better. It's to, bring some feature parity up with the PS5 because they want a native PS5 release, one that has, the DualSense features, one that has variable refresh rate, and one that has generally a level of fidelity, like textures and lighting and character models, that matches like modern PS5 stuff. I don't understand why that's a reason. I think a lot of people are quite cynically looking at it and going, oh, it's Sony trying to triple dip on Horizon Zero Dawn. Because of course they dipped initially with the PS4 release, of course, that's releasing a game. Then they double dipped on PC, new platform, same game. That's completely fine. But now the third is, what's the point? What's the point of this triple dip? And I think everyone is going, it's just to make money. But as Yongya rightfully points out, why are they prioritizing a Horizon Zero Dawn remaster over Bloodborne? Or, any other of the games that could be nicely released again? No one has any real idea. It's confusing, right? Everyone's just confused by this. It's going to happen, and people understand the reasons. One final point on Horizon Zero Dawn's remaster. People are just kind of going, oh yeah, there's a Netflix Horizon show, so you want to release the game again for a full price at the same time you're, got the Netflix show out. And obviously, if this goes ahead, it implies that The Last of Us Part 1 for $70 actually sold a lot better than I think most of us think it deserved. But it's like, for us gamers, like, what's the point of this? Why are you doing this? And even Young in his tweet is like, remaster/remake. No one has any idea what these actually mean. So then the other remake that people are thinking about is Dead Space. Remake, remaster. I think it's been called a remake, but you could also be forgiven for thinking it's a remaster because we don't really know what the difference is, and we'll get into definitions from Nightdive later on. But that's the thing where you see people online going, what's the point of this? This looks kind of the same. It looks better, but it also looks kind of the same, especially because Dead Space still looks and plays okay. But then obviously you have to go and get it on an older platform. And I believe the PC port wasn't very good. So people are looking forward to this kind of, hey, this is remade. It's a little bit nicer. You can play it properly again. EA using an old IP effectively well. Especially when they are actually adding things like changing how the narrative's done with Isaac talking, more missions, new content. Then you kind of get into the problem of it being a remake whenever the original Dead Space creators off doing the Callisto Protocol, and that's like a spiritual successor. And then we've got a problem of, do you play the spiritual successor because it's the idea, it's the creativity, it's the artistry behind Dead Space, trying something similar but new, versus Dead Space, which is the game you like and the IP you like, and the one you know of. And that's where it gets a little bit crazy, and we have to get into like language and definitions and stuff like that, because the industry effectively has absolutely no standard. There's no this remaster is 50% new like assets. It has to have at least 5 core like fundamental changes, or it has to have so much difference. It's literally just, you can call whatever you want. You could call a version 1.1 patch a remaster if you really felt like it, and you would effectively get away with it as long as you weren't destroyed in the court of public opinion. Which is where I think we should probably get these actually under control in some capacity. Thankfully, we've got a good framework to think about these because of Nightdive Studios. There are people who are effectively the specialists in the field of remasters and remakes of old-ass games, as well as enhanced editions, because they actually spoke to VGC and gave more or less their philosophy on it, right? So they said that based on the work we've done in the past, we've done a little bit of everything. We've done what we like to call enhanced editions, where you're basically taking the original game, right, making it run on newer operating systems and adding some nice quality of life stuff like widescreen support. And that is very much, hey, we're making the existing game playable. We're not necessarily making it better as a game, we're just making it playable. And that's where you kind of have this issue of the game layer and like the product layer in a sense, where the game is the same. The game stays basically pristine, but then how you interface with it and how you interact with it is better because you've got better peripheral support, widescreen display, you're playing it on a different platform, stuff like that. And that's where you go, okay, that's our framing. Enhanced editions are original game, but with technological improvements that don't actually impact the game experience itself. The examples of this then are very obvious. Baldur's Gate, The Witcher, those are just ones that like GOG keep doing, where it's like, hey, this is a good old game, but it's so old you can't play it. So how about we make it so you can play it? Great, wonderful, excellent. That's all you need to do. Re-release it for a low cost because you didn't cost very much. Sweet. But then we've got the second category, and the one where I think, and this is why it's relevant to games as a whole, is because you get the median between how much effort's required and how much profit you get back. And sometimes that works for us, and sometimes it very much doesn't. Nightdive talk about remasters this way. They say they've got quality of life stuff and constantly running at like 60 frames per second. This is specifically about Shadow Man as their example. But then they also did art on top of that. They added textures, they added models. They went so far with the original developers to implement stuff that got left on the cutting room floor. And this is where remasters, I think, have a lot of value if done correctly. Because they're more or less, right, here's the game, but better. Here's the game, but, I mean, that's the whole, like, the literal definition of remaster is it has been mastered again. In the sense, you know, our mastering is a printing of something. That's where it comes from. And that's the idea of, okay, you've improved the game. You've made it, all the technology layer that we talked about earlier with like it running and stuff, you've made that better, but you've also added some changes to the game layer. Almost like strip the wallpaper and repaint it. You have upgraded textures, you've upgraded models, you upgrade visuals. Sometimes you can like say, I mean, this is what a remaster ideally does, is it makes it run better. It goes, oh, hey, well, that was dipping to like 45 in this scene, even on whatever hardware because of a problem. We'll tune that where we can. We can fix this up. We can, make it more efficient. We can, maybe even change some control schemes or I guess add some peripheral support, stuff like that, and make it generally, hey, this is a better version of the same game. The game itself part is literally better, but it's still the same game. It's just a little bit nicer. And that's where Shadow Man Remastered's there. Then on the higher end of that spectrum, you've basically got the Crash games and Spyro, right? And they're more or less the same game. They are the same core game, almost like the same, not just foundations, but like the same core structure of the building. And then they've just kind of replastered, repainted, made it look nice, maybe redone some of the wiring, but fundamentally it is the same thing. Almost in the ship of thesis example of, once you replace every plank, it's a new ship, or is it? ? That's the idea of like half it's still there, but the other half's been replaced and improved. And that's where those are good examples of that, where you go, okay, this is meaningfully different, especially when it comes to age. Because Spyro and Crash, they were old, you couldn't get them on the platform, but they were really, really solid. So you keep the part of them that's really solid, and then you improve how they look, improve how they feel slightly, and then you've got a remaster. So that's effectively what remaster is in the ideal case. Then the final one, and I think the one that people like the most, but is also not quite as profitable unless you're Capcom and do it really well, is the remake. Because Nightdive say about remakes that System Shock, that's their example, is a ground-up remake. It's all brand new, but based on the original game. And this is the idea of, you've got a house that's, say, a bit shitty. It's run down, it's wrecked, but you still like what was there, or you like the idea of it. So you demolish it, you knock it down, then you can rebuild, and you go, okay, well, maybe now in 2022, we should have an ensuite bathroom instead of one shared bathroom for like 4 bedrooms ever. Okay, well, we can add that. We can put that in. We like how the kitchen, living room were, but we maybe want open plan. But it's still, it's still fundamentally the same house, but some parts are different. Some parts are newer. Some parts are like more modernized in the full way. And that analogy got a little bit out of control, but that's exactly what Capcom did with Resident Evil 2 and 3. And those are, oh boy, those are successful. Those are extremely successful because they understood what was great about the Resident Evil games and went, how do we make that today? How do we build that from the ground up to be Resident Evil 2 and 3 if made today? And that's exactly what they did. These definitions are a little bit malleable, not exactly an exact science, but people understand from that perspective, right? And then there's almost even like a fourth category, which is remake asterisk, which is like FF7 is remake, where that's Final Fantasy VII remade. On a meta level, they know it's a remake, so they can tell a different story, and they can almost make it like feel kind of like an alternate reality spin-off that's technically canon in a weird sense. So there's a little bit of that, and that's where cost comes into this whole equation. Because for a remake, right? Hell yeah, you'll pay full price. Of course, you'll pay modern game pricing for Final Fantasy VII remake because it is a whole new game. You'll do the same with Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, and you'll go, well, these are good games. These are great modern games, sure. But that gets weird when it comes to remasters because that, and this is, oh man, this is so weird for developer costs and stuff. But Horizon Zero Dawn as our example. Will that replace the same game and go, okay, well, instead of going and buying Horizon Zero Dawn on the PlayStation Store for, I'm assuming it's $60. If the remaster comes out, will that be $70? And will you have to buy it again? Is that the case of it just being a triple dip? Then what actually serves the purpose? If, in our previous example, if it's a slightly better version of the same game, then is that enough worth buying the whole thing again? And that's where players kind of get into it. And then for the enhanced editions, the difference there, or the length of time between the original release, is going to be so long that you're going to kind of understand. And that's why they keep them cheap enough as well. They're not going to go, hey, here's Baldur's Gate enhanced, $70, go for it. I mean, to get into a very personal example of this, right? Whenever I bought the Saints Row remasters, Saints Row 3 on Epic, I was like, oh yeah, sure, I like these games, I'll buy them again. But then By the time I was done with them, I was like, that wasn't really transformationally different. And I already own these games on PC. Wait, am I an idiot? And that's ultimately what happened to those games. I played the remaster and went, I feel like an idiot for playing those games, paying the full price for them. Because that doesn't feel quite like, they didn't feel substantially different. They were better. But I feel like, especially because I owned the games, I should have maybe got them for like tenner or something. But then the other example is Tony Hawk. And obviously I don't say very many positive things about Activision, for good reason, but Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 by Vicarious Visions was absolutely astounding. It was basically my game of the year it came out, and I was more than happy to buy it. I actually double-dipped. I actually bought it on PS5 again, because it has the 1080p 120Hz support for my TV, and I was like, and I wanted to play on console. Like, yeah, I like that game so much, I'm happy to buy it twice, but that's because it's a really good game, not because it's a remake or a remaster. And also, the time differential there is, I don't have Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 sitting around. I mean, I might do, at my family home or something, but generally speaking, no, that was a completely new game, and I didn't feel scuffed by a different platform, remake, full remake. Yeah, it's a brand new game. I'm more than happy to pay for it. So that's where I kind of come from for this, where I feel like remasters definitely aren't worth it a lot of the time. Unless you're buying a game for the first time. The whole double dip thing, they try to go out of their way to make sure you don't just get, oh yeah, here's £5 or a $10 like DLC upgrade pack. Because that's more or less what they are, especially now as platforms start to blur. Especially now as a lot of PC games are sitting there on Steam for like Sony. Because I mean, imagine what happens if they try to sell Horizon Zero Dawn Remaster on PC. And you're like, but we just bought the original game a while ago. What are you trying to pull? And even because the platform between PS4 and PS5 is now, backwards compatible, and there's the like digital shared storefront. But I already own this game. Why are you asking me to buy it again? The thing is, it's not always as simple as just, hey, this is a re-release. Hey, this is a remake. Because video games are particularly interesting as a medium, and they come along a very long way in a very short periods of time, there are a couple little things we need to talk about. In general, remasters and the idea of like new editions and stuff like that for double dips, for like maybe fans to have a different interpretation, that's not necessarily new. But video games have this kind of problem in a very interesting way, because the mediums come along so long in such a short period of time. And there's all the different like platform things, because, if you own audio, you've had to deal with, okay, there's vinyl, then there's cassettes, and then you've got, CDs, and then we're still there basically, right? For audio, it's that. For movies, you've got a little bit like the HD DVD stuff, but it was basically VHS, DVD, Blu-ray. It's not been quite as rapid and as weird as with video games. Games generally are products of their time and context. So, like, you look at Silent Hill 2, right? Because there's some Silent Hill there's always talks about Silent Hill re-releases, right? But the whole thing about Silent Hill's fog is because back in the day, they couldn't literally render in the quality they wanted at the distance. So they added fog because they wanted to keep the close range stuff. And then that worked, right? That was like, oh, that's a hardware limitation. Oh, that's really cool. And even for another example of hardware limitations, you've got games like Shovel Knight that are actually designed to hold to the hardware limitations of the old days, and then the really cool design from that capacity. But then you think about the Silent Hill HD collection, where they went, the fog's gone because we don't need it anymore. Oh, we've ruined the atmosphere of the game. That was stupid. So Philip Salgado, writing for Killscreen, has this really just absolutely perfect way to describe it, right? Talking about the HD release of Silent Hill 2. And the promise is the game you've loved, but in a slightly nicer coat of paint. But that's not how movies are remade a lot of the time. Movies are re-released because they're generally like all of the footage is shot there, and they'll ideally have archived it so they can kind of go, oh, we can release this again. Sure, we had to compress it for the DVD release, but we can release it on Blu-ray. We can have the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray using the same assets. We just need to reprint it and make sure everything works. Maybe we'll do some adjustments. Maybe we'll include a special feature, but it's fundamentally the film will always be the same. So when you're remaking a movie, you actually don't just remake the movie shot for shot. He goes through a couple examples of like Gus Van Sant's remake of Psycho, and then Michael Haneke's English language remake of his own movie, and they're pointless formal exercises because the original movie still exists, so you don't need it. Slightly better, and also they can do that anyway. But for video games, Silent Hill is supposed to be suspended in amber as an artifact to be played, not to be reinterpreted. That's why the game is unchanged. Talking about the impulse to archive the medium. Because there's no centralized format or way to play video games, the act of like archiving starts to break down when you do that. because Silent Hill HD, the audio's out of sync, the game stutters, slows to a crawl, the walk animation's stuck, the fog isn't there in some cases. And that's the idea of preservation through remaster and remake is kind of really interesting for games, because a remake is like, hey, let's make this again. Let's apply a new creative layer, a new creative force to this. And that's what works super well for Capcom's games. But remasters are just, hey, we'll sell this again at full price, even though we have to put a little bit of effort into it. And that's the weird thing where people love their original video games, and as soon as you try to play with them, you're kind of adding your own artistic license to them, and that's when it goes a little bit wrong. Nightdive we talked about, but they made a pretty major mistake earlier on. Blade Runner Enhanced Edition was a lot of bugs, and it ran worse than actually the fan update, and the special... Oh man, the special edition of Blade Runner had the fan update bundled in. So almost like you're buying a copy of Skyrim that comes with the unofficial Skyrim patch, or the same for Oblivion or Morrowind. Except in this case, they actually didn't include the fan update with the re-release. They re-released it with their own fixes that were kind of worse. And then another modern example, this is really, really dire, right? It's Tales of Symphonia. That getting a modern re-release announced there at the Tokyo Game Show was kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Okay, sure, fine, whatever. There's a PC version that that was made in 2016. The problem is, this based on the PS2 port, and this is where things get interesting, because it's based on the PS2 port, which had more content, but the PS2 port ran at 30 frames per second, whereas the GameCube version, the original one with less content, ran at 60. And God knows why that happened, but ultimately it means that modern versions are based on the one with more content. They run at 30 frames per second instead of 60, and even... someone patched the re-release to run at 60 and it broke, like it horribly broke. So there's something wrong with the source code, and that's the kind of, it's dire. And there's a load of different perspectives you have to think about, because there's the consumer perspective of, wouldn't you love to play old game but new? Because you can't just go and play old game again, because that's not how it works. There's no incentive on the developer end for you to go buy an old copy of, say... Let's use an example. Let's say you buy Ape Escape for the PS1. There's no real reason. Sony don't want you to do that, because they want you to pay for PlayStation Plus Premium and play Ape Escape on the PS5. Even though it'll be like, obviously there's emulation, that'll be different. They don't want you to go and get a PS3 and play Gravity Rush. They want you to get a PS4 and play Gravity Rush Remastered. Also, they don't want you to play Gravity Rush anyway, because, well, funny enough. So basically, we're in this really weird mire where it's actually completely up to you to figure out what you actually want out of games. But then that kind of interacts with a different part where it comes to the incentives of the developer. Because Sony could be spending money on remaking an old game, or, they could put the Capcom level effort in. They could say, hey, Bluepoint, go do for Bloodborne what you did for Demon's Souls. They could do that. And then they're like, well, is that as efficient in terms of the distribution of capital as Bluepoint working on their own video game? Or is it, instead of that release window being Bloodborne, how about we just get Guerrilla to resell Horizon Zero Dawn? Because it worked for The Last of Us. Why don't we just repackage it and sell it again? Obviously, you can choose to just ignore it, but it does feel bad that they're actually doing that on you, especially when, no one who's bought Horizon will need this. So it's like not for the fans. It's for a wider perspective. It's for a wider audience. It's constantly trying to either get hyper fans to double dip or get new people into the audience. It's very little of it isn't designed to be good for like the average player or you. And that's the same with a whole bunch of different remastered and re-releases. I mean, there's stuff like the THQ Nordic and basically Embracer are trying to do a lot of that with like the Destroy All Humans. And that's like a perfectly reasonable, hey, this is now accessible on a new platform. So that's more or less our exploration of remasters and remakes today. Sony are seemingly taking the piss with Horizon Zero Dawn, because there's almost no artistry to that. It is full on just, go for the triple dip. Here's a slight upgrade. It looks a little bit better. Maybe it'll run a little bit slightly nicer with, VRR and stuff. But it doesn't feel like it deserves it. Because the game's only 5 years old. It feels like all those efforts should be put elsewhere. The same, that's why people look at what Capcom are doing and go, hell yeah, do that. It's even why people are looking at what THQ Nordic are doing with the re-releases of, Embracer Group, I should say, doing with the re-releases of the likes of Destroy All Humans. And even to an extent, like the Kingdoms of Amalur re-reckoning. That wasn't super necessary on PC, and that's the fun part. PC completely destroys all these remaster plans because we've got games from the mid PS3 era that run sort of okay or have fan updates, and so that's the secret. PC kind of ruins a lot of these plans for them. But fundamentally speaking, there's those ideas of like, hey, is this going to be, I can play this on a new platform at 60 frames per second? Perfect. That's all people really want, I think, out of their games. Can I play the game I like? but it is actually good? Or are you going to create a new game? Are you going to create new artistry? And that's what some are doing, but it's not what everyone's doing. And I think the ultimate takeaway is Horizon Zero Dawn doesn't need a remaster. The Last of Us Part 1 didn't need a remaster because it had a remaster for PS4. Cool, I almost forgot about that. What people actually want is Bloodborne to run at 60 frames per second or 120 and to have consistent frame timings. Because this is kind of going to be a little bit of a throwback, but the remaster feels like we're returning to an era of video games where graphics mattered and people sold stuff on graphics as opposed to selling stuff on, hey, this game's really damn good. Because making a new game that's really damn good takes a lot of money and is very, very hard. And that's why Capcom are really, really damn good at it. And that's why you can see other places take the easy way out. So what do you think? Like, are you happy enough to buy remasters that are like slightly better if they're reasonably priced? Are you happy to like double and triple dip for franchises because they support the developers? Or are you kind of a little bit more like me and kind of going, what the hell's the point of this? Just give us new games. Stop giving us the old games that are already fine. Give us the new games. Give us the old games that run now. Fine. If you want to sell us old games from like the PS1, PS2 era, but they're good or they run well, that's fine. But don't take us for idiots. Don't take us for fools. Don't just sell us the same shit over and over again. So I think people start to really, really understand that's what's happening. But that's, man, it's dire. Anyway, don't buy the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster unless you haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn and want to. That would be fine. Especially if they try to monetize it on PC, because if they do that, you tell them to absolutely go fuck themselves. Go buy Capcom's games, because Capcom are doing a great job, even with Street Fighter 6, surprisingly. And basically, more or less, keep in mind what game devs are trying to go away with. I say game devs. Publishers. Developers, obviously, they put their effort as much as they can into anything. And that's why you get remakes and remasters that are really good sometimes. Especially Tony Hawk's. Oh god, I could just go buy that, basically. Go buy Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. It's probably on sale now. That's the takeaway here. But thank you very much for watching, and I will absolutely see you very soon.